Greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Days of Prog. Today we're going to be reviewing the album The World of Genius Hands by Moving Gelatin Plates.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
Honestly, I love the cover for this album and I just love looking at it, and hopefully you do too, so here are some of my favorite bits from the album so you can look at it just a bit more. So what can I say? This album is great. This album is pure Canterbury. It is superfluously incredible with its will to defy expectations at each and every single turn. It is what you expect from the Canterbury scene. We've seen many like it. There's really not a lot special about it until you remember the fact that this one doesn't actually come to us from Canterbury. Yes, today's album and today's band in particular come to us from a full channel away from Canterbury itself, in France actually. Yes, despite the fact that their sound is very much reminiscent of whatever you might find in Kent back in the 70s, well, they actually don't come from there. And well, I act as if it's something surprising, but honestly, everyone knows Canterbury does not mean that you have to be in Canterbury. The fact that the style of music and subgenre has originated from there does not mean that it's limited to only this one place on earth, and we see it with bands like the Dutch Super Sister, or the Italian Picchio del Pozo, or even with the equally French Gong. Yes, being a part of the Canterbury scene does not mean that you have to live in Canterbury, but instead it means that Canterbury has to live inside of you, which is, now that I said it, sounds deeply disturbing. But Moving Gelatin Plates is a bit of a unique case out of all the rest, and maybe because of its obscurity and the fact that there's really not a lot of readily available information about them. There's actually so little information that what I'm gonna say in this review is all that I could find, and I tried to find more information when searching up a really obscure progressive rock documentary, but I couldn't find it, and honestly, I could not be bothered. So the story of Moving Gelatin Plates starts all the way back in 1966, where two 14-year-olds called Gerald Bertram and Didier Thiabaut met one another when they were attending school, and together they realized that both had a high affection for music and its creation. And in 1968, the two friends have decided that they wanted to form a band together heavily inspired by jazz music, and it would be called Moving Gelatin Plates. And later on they were added by two acquaintances of them, firstly Gerard Pons, which took care of the percussions and drumming, but secondly, and maybe even most importantly, we have Maurice Helminger, which actually took the keyboards, but he was also a multi-instrumentalist, and he added several instruments such as the trumpet, the saxophones, and the flute into the array of sounds of Moving Gelatin Plates, which arguably gave them the distinct sound that you might expect from the Canterbury scene style. Now, in the year of 1971, the band released their first album, and this was their eponymous album simply titled Moving Gelatin Plates, and this one unfortunately received some pretty heavy critical acclaim, and backing that up with a pretty atrocious score, this one was bound to fail. But the band still undeterred went back into the studio in order to record their second studio album, this time titling it The World of Genius Hands, and the album itself was released in 1972, again to some pretty heavy heavy critical acclaim. I guess they just didn't know what to do with this type of music in France at the time. And pair that with the fact that the band had some poor management and some lacking promotion, they really couldn't go on anywhere and they were dealt with no cards, thus leaving them to do one thing, and that's of course to disband. But little did anyone know back then, this obscure band from France would go on to create music that would not only be remembered but would define the sound of Canterbury and would act as one of its most leading representatives. Today their two first albums are well considered to be some staples of the subgenre. Now, in the year of 1980, Didier Thibault decided that he wanted to give this project yet another go, so he reformed the band with himself being the only remaining original member and changing their name from Moving Gelatin Plates to simply Moving. And in the same year, they released yet another album, again an eponymous album, and well, it really didn't do much. And yes, the band disbanded once again after this try by Didier, but he did not give up and he came back in 2006 and yet again reformed the band, this time taking the brand of Moving Gelatin Plates once again, and they released yet a new album in the 2000s, and well, should I tell you, wasn't really that successful, although based on the ratings that I see on the Prog archives, it also seems like it wasn't that bad either. But yeah, overall, this is Moving Gelatin Plates in a nutshell for you. A band which honestly could have been left just unremembered by the passage of time, but somehow they did manage to stay relevant up until today, not waiting for people to discover them as much as just being this pretty well-known band in the community of people that like the Canterbury sound. Now, while trying to categorize the Canterbury scene sound in different ways might be a daunting task, I feel like there's one thing which can really work on a lot of albums, and that's trying to determine whether it be more Dave-Stewart keyboard-led type of music, or is it more in the direction of traditional jazz with a lot of brass sounds incorporated into it. And when it comes down to this band and this album in particular, I do think that it falls under the latter, having a lot of those Hellinger sounds with the trumpets, the saxophone, and the flutes, which I personally really enjoy, although I must say that I would equally enjoy the more Stewart sound with a lot of keyboards as well. But this album is basically what you might expect. It is unexpected, it moves and it shifts in so many different ways, you really never know what's gonna happen. From the title track of The World of Genius Hands, which literally cannot stay in the same melodic theme for more than like 4 seconds, to tracks like Astro Monster or Moving Theme, or even the last short piece of Un Jour. This album is just really cool and I enjoyed a lot of things about it, but as I said in the beginning, there's really not a lot that I can say about this. I am not the person to try and break down this music and tell you why it is so significant, but still I do think that it is, and personally I am very subjective towards it and I love it, but honestly I would get why someone wouldn't. But with my acquaintance of how some prog heads like to listen to their music, I think that there are some people that maybe consider themselves as being, you know, these avid Canterbury scene lovers, which never really got around to listening to this one for various reasons. So if you're one of the people in this group, I highly suggest that you go ahead and listen to this one. It is streamed online, it is streamed on Spotify, it's really good, and honestly, if you like anything from the Canterbury scene, I really don't see any reason why you wouldn't love this one as well. So guys, we finally did it. We finally found the brother of the fish from the Trout Mask replica cover. Oh, look at them, they're so adorable together. But yeah, if that's not the first thing that comes up to your mind when you see this one, then I don't know what you're seeing, because honestly it was obvious to me. But unlike the case of their eponymous album simply titled Moving Gelatin Plates, which featured the cover featuring basically a plate with gelatin on it being moved by a hand, this one is much more elusive. How would you do a cover for something that's called The World of Genius Hands? And to me, this feels like the same conundrum with the title like The Low Spark of High-Heeled Boys. Now, the task of creating a fitting cover for this album was given to a man called Henry Noble Court. And well, Henry, from what I've seen over on Discogs, is well familiar with creating these sort of mugshots, or not mugshots, but just portrait shots of various artists and putting them on covers. So when it came down to creating this one, I don't really know what went on, but I'm sure that photographing this pig figure was pretty interesting for him, and honestly it took it in a nice direction of creating this pink background and creating something which is unlikely to be seen anywhere in reality, thus creating the cover which is much more exotic and even somewhat fairy tale like. But if you wanted to ask me what meaning does this cover have, well, I am none the wiser. So yeah, when it comes to rating this album, I'll give it quite a biased rating honestly, because I just love this type of music and I think that this one deserves a rating of 8 out of 10. But that's about it guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video and stay tuned for tomorrow because we're going to be listening to Wind Chase by Sebastian Hurdy. I of course want to thank my lovely supporters over on Patreon, so thank you so much to Clay Wan, Rest of Kings and Lindsay Hickox, you guys are just the best, and if any of you want to support me over on Patreon you can find the link down in the description or in my about page. But that's about it guys, have a wonderful day and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye guys.